All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, Councilmember Marjorie Velasquez is here to tell us about a bill that would require every dealer in firearms in the city to post a notice informing the public of potential risks when purchasing a gun. Then Attorney Belkis Garcia from Legal Aid will be here to tell us about a major class action settlement involving the expansion of Medicaid covering on dental services. And finally, Wilfredo Laracuente from 13 Forward is here to give us an update on the No Slavery Act in New York. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. All right, hello, welcome to Today's Verdict, the interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet me at David Lesh and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, check us out at bronxnet.tv. There is new legislation requiring consumer warnings regarding weapons and firearms sold in New York City. To tell us more about it, we have in studio Councilmember Marjorie Velasquez. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, David.
It's our pleasure. I know it's a little bit tough today, a lot going on in Lehman, graduation day, but you made it, and we appreciate it here. Why now? Why this legislation now?
Because it hasn't been done, and because we need to advise folks of the risks, right? When you look at a carton of cigarettes, right? Now you have that risk, and that's what we're making the consumer be more aware of with issues and certainly like suicide, like domestic violence.
We see this stuff all in the news every single night, all the mass shootings. There's so much, we have to do something, I think.
Right, and part of it is advising the consumer, hey, you know what, these are the risks, and then putting it at the entrance, legible, and it is making it sure that, you know, if there is a language access, right, if the area is predominantly Latino, or depending on the language of the area, that we reflect that as well. We want to make sure that all consumers are aware.
So walk me through it. So I walk into a particular establishment that sells firearms. Do I walk over to the area right where the guns are? Am I walking right into the store and I see it?
Yeah,
if they sell other things? Tell me what I see.
So if you're selling a firearm, the sign would be at the entrance, legible, on white background, black lettering, very clear and legible, so that every consumer understands the risks when you go ahead and purchase a firearm.
All right, so are these warnings in various languages?
So going back to that piece,
right.
Yes, and depending on the area, we're pushing to making sure that there is accessibility to those who speak other languages than just English.
Okay, and the warning, what in particular is it really alerting the purchaser of? What risks that they really didn't know they had beforehand?
Well, it's kind of like cigarettes, right? We all knew at some point that they would cause cancer, right? But now making sure that you understand that risk when you're actually holding the item. It's just the same way when you're entering this establishment, going in and understanding that there are potential risks, and here are the risks. You know, at the end of the day, if you're not properly storing it, if you're not properly training yourself, then there are additional risks.
Okay, so you see the signs and they're posted, right?
Yes.
Now you walk up to the counter.
Yes.
And you purchase the firearm. Are you getting a little lecture from the guy?
Not at all.
It's just the
entrance.
Just the entranceway.
Because by that time, also understand, and we're in New York City, right? We understand the different layers New York City has to even obtain a permit.
That's correct.
So there is that education piece, and it's a very long application process. And so we all understand that piece, but also now you understand when, as a consumer, what the risks are.
Now, I don't know how private sales work when guns are sold privately, or how that works. I assume you still have to be licensed to carry a weapon and to do all these things, but I don't know how this warning comes across if it's a private sale. What happens if that happens?
So this is more for establishments, right?
Okay.
But in that conversation, we should also consider that, right? And see how, with private sales, if there's an affidavit that you would have the purchaser basically sign that, hey, this person explained to me the risk or provided me with this sheet of the risks in a similar fashion that establishments are doing as well. So that way it's a consumer-based law that we are protecting and advising and just educating the consumer.
Now, this isn't just a New York legislation. We've had this throughout the country. Am I correct?
Right. We have it in Colorado.
All right. And to the T, or did they change it up a little bit? Did they get more? Did they get a little less?
So we're modeling it after them.
Right.
So they're the leaders in this, and we definitely want to make sure that we're following the lead because we've seen the benefits of it for them. And it literally is basically just educating the consumer. As the chair of Consumer Worker Protection, I have a responsibility to make sure that all my consumers understand their rights, and in addition, what the products are and what are the rights with those products.
All right, let's talk pushback, because there's always pushback.
Of course.
All right, so where are we feeling the heat? From Republicans, from, I don't know, more moderate Democrats? Where are you feeling the heat here?
Well, I mean, certain people will feel it doesn't go far enough, right? And there are other people that would feel that it's too far, right? And my goal is to be in the middle. I'm here to listen to both sides, and that's where, when we are going to have the hearing at committee, that we invite everyone to come. Share your ideas, right? I just literally got the open dining bill, right? And I started it back in January of 2022, and it was only a couple of weeks ago that both the mayor and the speaker agreed to the terms, right? So I like to take my time to listen to everyone. So besides the hearing, what I've done in the past is going to the local community boards, going to local establishments, understanding, and it's
what
not
are you
just
hearing from the.
so that is yet to happen. So, like for me, what we end up doing is we go to even other boroughs, other districts, with the council members that express the largest amounts of concerns. We're here, and we meet with everybody, and we make sure that everyone's heard. Right, a compromise at the end means that we all are gaining something, but we're all losing something, right? Because it's a deal, and what we effectually want to do is make sure that at the end we're honoring what it is, which is just advising the consumer of the risk.
I know the viewers are going to want to know, are there any fines or any, what happens if you don't actually post and there's an undercover public official who comes in and sees that, wow, you're selling this without any type of any type of warnings?
I would say it would be treated the same way as tobacco sales are treated in smoke shops, right? If you have the license to sell tobacco, you show the license for tobacco, and you make sure that it's there, right? And then there is also the warning for tobacco.
Right.
And so if you don't have it up, then that's when you get the fine, right?
Okay.
It's just like that.
We don't have too much time, but what else is going on in your district? What else are you doing?
Besides open dining and all that good
Tell
stuff.
me about a little open dining.
So it's a great bill. It's not going to be full year, right? The roadside piece, but the sidewalk piece will be. And I think a lot of folks have benefited in the past with the sidewalk, and it was so restrictive because you would have to have an architect and an engineer, and that's so cost prohibitive, especially for our small mom and pops that are popping up and giving like a first chance in the communities. And what we noticed in COVID, when you relaxed that and allowed local businesses to partake without all these restrictions,
Better for everybody.
It's better for everyone. The Bronx jumped up from like 30 something to like 600 something.
Wow.
And we're better off for it. And it's not to say that there aren't any bad actors, but we made sure that we're addressing the bad actors as well. For me, in a world that works for everyone, is that we honor and respect all the good work that the good actors were doing, right? Which is investing in our communities, giving us a safe space to meet up with our friends and our families during a really tough time. I want to give a shout out to my local restaurant, Brewski's, that had the best quarantini freezies, right? They were amazing, and they kept me and my husband well fed and hydrated. But also, at the end of the day, what that can we take from those lessons, right? We saved the jobs, we saved a lot of restaurants. Let's keep those lessons, that sense of community moving forward, but also the bad actors, the ones that did not respect the community, that made it into a garbage pile,
Yeah, we don't want
right?
that.
We take those down, and it's going back to your electeds that work with DOT, that work with sanitation to knock them down.
All right, well, listen, first of all, we love having you, and we appreciate
you.
you getting here. It wasn't easy. Hopefully you'll come back and visit us to give us an update.
Yes.
All right.
Gotcha.
We have to take a quick break, but up next, attorney Belkis Garcia tells us about a settlement involving Medicaid coverage for New Yorkers. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. We are always encouraging you to stay connected, so tweet me at David Lesh. Millions of New Yorkers will be able to get Medicaid coverage for dental implants, root canals, and other vital dental procedures as part of a settlement in a federal class action lawsuit. Here to tell us more is attorney Belkis Garcia from the Legal Aid Society, and we love Legal Aid Society. Listen, now, full disclosure, I am married to a dentist.
Great.
So I know a little bit about root canals and crowns, and they're not inexpensive, and no one's loving root canals. But what was the impetus behind this particular legislation? Why teeth?
Yeah. Well, at the Legal Aid Society, we have a health law practice that does individual representation, and we have a helpline where people call about various issues, health law issues that they need assistance with. And the dental calls were the ones that we would get so often that there were very few good, clear legal remedies for people who are being denied Medicaid coverage for dental care because New York has an incredibly limited dental benefit, and it was a priority for us to be able to give people options, and in order to do that, we needed to change the rules.
Let's take a step back a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Medicaid generally. Maybe you could just tell the viewers a little bit about what Medicaid is, you know, the program itself, and who would or would not qualify.
Sure. Medicaid is a joint federal, state, and locally run program. It's primarily run by the states. And it is health insurance coverage for primarily low-income people and people with disabilities. So in order to qualify, you need to be poor enough. You need to have low enough income in order to qualify for Medicaid.
Now, in the past, prior to this, what was the rule that was followed with respect to your own teeth and whether or not you could get Medicaid to pay for certain services?
Right. So this case is about, or focuses on 4 specific services: root canals, crowns, dental implants, and replacement dentures, as you said. And there are different rules for each of them. Right. The case is about people over 21, which are considered adults in the Medicaid program if you're over 21. And the rules were different for each of those services. For dental implants, at the time that we brought the case, they were never covered under any circumstances.
And by the way, this was back in 2018.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Replacement dentures, at the time that we filed, were covered only every 8 years. And then there were some exceptions to that.
So what did that mean? You broke your dentures, you had an accident, or there was an issue. You had to wait 8 years to get new teeth?
That's right.
All right. Horrible.
With some exceptions.
Okay.
For root canals for over the age of 21, they're generally not covered. That's primarily the rule. Again, there are a few limited exceptions, being that if you need to save a tooth in order to keep your denture in place, that would be an instance in which the program would pay for root canals, but primarily they were not covered. And the same thing for crowns.
Well, I found interesting now with the new legislation, or the new law, should I say, with respect to the requirement of the root canal, you need your 4 back molars to be touching each other. Now, what was that about? What was the reason for that?
That is the rule, the current rule, and one of the ones we were looking to challenge. So it's called the 8 points of contact rule.
Okay.
And it says that if, as you said, if you have 4 teeth or 8 teeth that touch in the back of your mouth, that's enough to function. That's what New York's Medicaid program says. So if you needed treatment on any other back tooth, if you had those 4 teeth, that was enough, and they would just pull the rest of them.
Wow.
And under the new rule, under the settlement, it inverts that rule. So what we're trying to do is to preserve natural teeth where possible and where appropriate.
Where's the pushback on this? Are there dentists who aren't happy with this, or because they're not getting paid from private insurance? There's always pushback somewhere. Where are you feeling the heat on this?
I mean, I would hope that dentists who accept the Medicaid program would not be pushing back, because it means they are going to get paid. You know, the rates in the Medicaid program are a different issue, but they will be able to get reimbursement for care that they're providing to Medicaid enrollees. The pushback, I think any expansion of the Medicaid benefit there's some pushback about the expense.
And obviously the Republicans are always push back on that. But what is your sense in New York at this point? Are we turning a corner where we're really looking at those who don't have and helping them get the medical benefits that they really deserve? What are your thoughts, at least legally?
I hope so. I think that's right. I mean, I hope that with this settlement and this expansion that it will bring some awareness to how important oral health is and how it's tied into our overall health, our mental health. It's such an incredibly important part of healthcare. And I think I am seeing that people are learning more and coming to agree and accept how important it is.
Well, we were even talking about this off camera, that at least from what I've been told, you have poor hygiene or have bad issues with your teeth can lead to heart disease, could lead to so many other medical issues.
That's right.
Was this one of the impetuses for making the change?
Absolutely. We brought the case exactly when we did because we had a client who was very ill, and his his physical health was so intertwined with his oral health. And he had no teeth, and he had a prescribed diet that he could not follow, and he was getting sicker because he couldn't get teeth, and he needed dental implants in order to hold dentures in place. And that he was the reason why we brought the case when we did.
How are you getting the word out? How are you letting, other than this show, obviously, but how else are you getting the word out?
So when the settlement is subject to the court's approval, so when that happens, the Department of Health will provide some training. There will be a notice that will go out about the settlement in some hospitals and some Medicaid offices, and we are doing everything we can to get the word out to talk to people about these upcoming changes.
Legal Aid always does such great things. That's why we love having you on. What else are you working on? Any other interesting things that you have cooking up at Legal Aid?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's happening, so I focus on healthcare and Medicaid specifically, and a thing that's happening right now is we're watching really closely what they call the unwind of the public health emergency, what does that mean? It is that every Medicaid recipient needs to be reevaluated for their eligibility for Medicaid, because during the public health emergency, everybody's Medicaid case was supposed to stay open regardless of a change of circumstances. With the end of the COVID public health emergency, now everybody needs to be reassessed. And it's a huge undertaking.
How do you do that? You just have doctors reviewing them?
No, this is the state.
It's financial.
Yeah, it's all of the eligibility requirements. So the state is looking at that. It's a big undertaking, and we're following it pretty closely.
And are you in favor of that or not in favor of that?
I mean, I think people should be able to keep their health insurance all the time, and nobody should lose their health insurance because of paperwork. But it's a requirement, and the state has to do it well.
Okay. And you'll come back and give us an update of what's been going on with everything at the office?
I will.
All right. All right, we have to take a quick break, but up next, an organization that is working with elected officials to create an equitable prison labor system for incarcerated workers. We'll be right back.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
13th Forward is a legislative coalition of advocates that is working toward the passage of two bills, the No Slavery in New York Act and the Fairness and Opportunity for Incarcerated Workers Act. Here to tell us more is campaign leader Wilfredo Larracuente. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, let's tell a little about you. Who are you? How'd you get involved in the organization? What makes you a spokesperson? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, I'm a former incarcerated leader who just returned home about 22 months ago after a 20-year prison stint from Sing Sing Correctional Facility. So I have worked in Coalcraft, and I'm passionate about this particular work because slavery still exists in New York State. It's a loophole that is being utilized by the Department of Corrections in concert with Coalcraft Industries. And the 13th Forward provided me an opportunity to work on this particular loophole and to be able to close it and garner movement with government officials in order to do what we need to do, just like just like Alabama and other states, we're closing the loophole for the 13th Amendment.
When you were incarcerated and you noticed the jobs that you were required to do and not getting paid very much, if anything, for them, was that what got you thinking this is something you want to change? Did you notice this when you were in there? Like, tell me what your feelings were while you were incarcerated and you saw this happening. Was it anger? Was it fear? Was it something else?
Well, it's just being emasculated by the system.
Okay.
So I kind of felt like I see people in real time in the world and they're getting adequate wages for what they do. And the type of work we did and getting up, 8 to 12 hours a day, getting paid anywhere from 15 cents to 45 cents, I just felt a sense of wrong. And I felt that that was something that I wanted to work on once I was released and I was granted parole, and that's why I'm here today.
Did you complain about these things while you were incarcerated? Were you able to put anything in writing or something to help change the situation that was going on?
The Department of Corrections frowns upon speaking upon these particular things while you're a ward of the state. So you either have to conform to what's going on with the mandated job assignment, or what they will do is they'll give you disciplinary actions, and then you'll be sequestered and suppressed. So they don't want that type of rumblings, as they say, to go with the job. So, you will be placed in solitary confinement.
Really?
You will be moved to another facility, and they will be very quick to squash that type of mutiny, as they look at it as.
Were there jobs that were better than other jobs when you were incarcerated in terms of financially, maybe paid a little bit more, or was it always the same amount of money no matter what type of job you were doing?
Well, when it comes to Coalcraft Industries, or it comes to...
And by the way, just so the viewers know, who's Coalcraft Industries?
Coalcraft Industry is a company that creates products that and they sell them to the city agencies and the non-for-profit agencies like the Department of Education, the courts, and what they do is they able to sell it whatever amount of they want, because their ROI, or their return on investment, they don't have to worry about cost, they don't have to really worry about labor, because the labor is coming fairly cheap, from 15 cents an hour to 45 cents an hour.
Okay, let's talk about these bills, all right?
Okay.
Let's talk about the first one. Why do we equate this with a form of slavery?
Okay, it's equated with a form of slavery because in America, you're able to be compensated with some type of standard. So they have a state minimum wage, they have a federal minimum wage. What DOCS and also in concert with Coalcraft has done is they have not had a system of checks and balances in place to go ahead and adequately compensate the men and women that are currently incarcerated by the Department of Corrections. So this particular bill, what it does is it closes the loophole so there can be no sanctions if you choose not to work. And then it closes the loophole of this particular form of slavery. And then the second bill, what it will do right behind it is be able to now work on adequate wages, work on possibly unionizing, work on having subcommittees in order to provide adequate wages and kind of police and hold the Department of Corrections along with Coalcraft with the ability now to adequately compensate the people that are housed by the Department of Corrections.
So what if you decided, I don't want to do this job, whatever particular job you're assigned to anywhere in the prison, what would you do instead? You just don't have to work. Like what would you do?
You wouldn't have to work, but what you can do is participate in voluntary programs to work on your rehabilitative process.
Okay.
So what happens is sometimes if people don't want to work, because there are people that don't want to be involved with the natural order and operations of the facility that is governed by DOCS, but we as a people housed there, we're the ones that run the facilities. We're the ones that prepare the meals. We're the ones that overall take the upkeep and the maintenance of the facilities. So if you choose not to do that, you can participate in therapeutic programming. You can participate in higher education. There are other places you can do other things you can do in order to work on those rehabilitative processes.
And in terms of compensation being paid, what type of money are we talking about?
Well, for me, that is something that is on the table, but I think the federal minimum wage of $7.25 would be adequate. That's not something that we're discussing or we would like to see happen. But there are other constituents that I have that want to see $15 an hour. But my thing about it is I want to be able to give the viewers and everyone to understand that there needs to be some form of economic stimulus package that needs to be given to the men and women that are housed in the Department of Corrections, because right now 15 cents to 45 cents an hour is not cutting it, and they need to have a raise.
Do you have the support in New York?
We have substantial support. Actually, the first part of the bill to close the loophole is being heard by the Judiciary Committee today, and it looks like it'll be passing. Hopefully, we have a lot of push, and we have even bipartisan support of the bill as it's going to the Senate. So it's something that I'm very excited about. I remember when this movement, when I first came out, we needed a lot of push, and we have done a lot of the work. We have put in the groundwork on the floor with the boots running, and I'm very comfortable and confident that this will be passed.
Where are you getting pushback from? Who's giving you a hard time on this type of legislation?
It's funny you say that. I don't want to say that we're receiving pushback.
Okay.
What I want to say is that when we're talking about slavery or closing the loophole, no government official wants to be on the wrong side of that. So my thing about it is that as it starts to garner more and more steam and more people's support, you just don't want to be that form of a minority that is opposed to it, because what it does is it may affect your potential reelection. So I feel sometimes that everybody just waiting for everyone to join in, and then after that they'll go ahead and they'll have it passed.
What are your thoughts? You think it's going to happen?
I'm very confident. I'm very confident. I'm looking at it now compared to what it was when I first came home 21 months ago when I became part of the steering committee, and I feel very confident that this is going to get passed, and then we'll work on the second bill and getting a hammered down and locked in a specific wage increase for the men and women that are housed by the Department of Corrections. And that's something that I'm looking forward to on this journey.
How do people reach you if they want to, help out? Or something?
You can log on to our Instagram page, the 13forward.ny, or more importantly, what I would like is for you to reach out to your government officials and be able to let them know that this is something that they should support, and this is something that needs to continue and have the conversation, because by having this conversation, this is where we are today.
All right, well, Fredo, thanks for coming. You really enlightened us on the issue, and we'd love you to come back to discuss it again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at bronxnet.tv. And always remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet me at davidlesh, and make sure to hashtag Ask Today's Verdict. From myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. I'm David Lesh, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks with an all-new episode of Today's Verdict right here on BronxNet. Take care.